that we're going to see a lot of opportunity. Like the challenge is going to be from a capital raising perspective. There's a lot of people on the sidelines right now because they're afraid. Okay. And that's exactly when Warren Buffett starts to invest. And so should you. If you're a sophisticated investor, you need to be discerning and you need to realize opportunity is when fear is the most prevalent, and the least opportunity is when greed is prevalent.
Tim is one of the most authentic and genuine people I've ever met.
Sincerely believe he's coming from a position of giving, and that means a lot.
You're going to make huge progress.
Welcome to the Capital Raising Show. I'm your host, Tim Mai, and today I have an amazing guest on the line with us. I'll read you his bio in just a little bit, but what's more impressive than his bio and what he has accomplished for himself, Michael Blank has helped students bought over 40,000 units of multifamily, over $1.5 billion of assets. Amazing a track record he has accomplished for his students. And Michael is the CEO of Nighthawk Equity. He is a passionate real estate investor, as well as an author of an Amazon bestseller, Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing, and the host of the popular Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing podcast. He is a contributor to Flipnote's REI Classroom, Bigger Pockets, and Home Business magazines. And on his podcast, he has interviewed prominent guests like Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, Ken McElroy, Robert Helms, Hal Elrods. And in his career, he has acquired over $450 million in assets, and currently managing around 2,000 units, personally raised over $75 million. That's a lot of money, Michael. That's awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for being on this show with me today.
It's great to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if we can start, if you can share with us a little bit about how you got started in real estate investing, and especially how you got started into the multifamily side.
Yeah, I have a background like many of us. I have a W-2 background. I have a software background, and I joined a software company in the late 90s and got lucky. I was an early employee in a company that was called Web Methods. We went public in March of 2000 and put a bunch of money in my pocket, which was great. And I and a lot of other people, and as the company grew bigger, left and went to other startups. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think in 2004. And I was like, damn, like I have all this money invested in stocks and blah, 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 but not really any passive income. So I was like, man, it really unsettled me. And so several months later, I came home to my wife and declared that I quit my job to pursue financial freedom. And unfortunately, Kiyosaki is silent on the exact strategy to use that's in his purple book. And so the reader's left to his own devices, right? So I did everything. I learned how to trade stocks and options. I flipped a house. I did all these things. I took seminars. I actually took an apartment building seminar back in 2005. It was super interesting. But my big idea was restaurants. I was surrounded by franchisees, and they're like, oh, yeah, you put this money in and you hire a guy to run it all, and you sit back and come on. And I was like, well, I surely would like to count the money. And so I got a business for 2.5 years until the recession hit, and then it stopped. So great. And it turned into a kind of a nightmare. I'll make a long story very short. I lost my IPO millions in the great restaurant experience and almost lost my house in the process. And while this is going on, I went back and I had flipped a couple houses, and literally like right before the recession, and it was really great. And I said, man, I need a client. I said, real estate, that's the other thing that Kiyosaki mentions, and it was pretty good. I should get into real estate. And when you think of real estate, you think of single family house investing of some sort. You're thinking of flipping or wholesaling, of course, or the Burr method or something. And so I hired a mentor and got into flipping. So he taught me how to send out postcards. And so I got into flipping. And so because my money was deployed / lost in the restaurant thing, I just started borrowing money for an interest 6-month term. And we were buying 2 a month, 2009. Lots of foreclosures. This was in the Northern Virginia market. The retail market was recovering quite. So you can buy a house for $90,000, put 30 into it, and you can sell it for 180. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And I did this with great enthusiasm for 3 years. Flipped 3 dozen houses while I'm out of the restaurant business. It took me an unbelievable long time to get out. And I only had one lawsuit I had to contend with because you personally guarantee all these leases. Anyway, the point is, I got into an apartment building by accident. One of my wholesalers brought me, it was a 12-unit deal in Washington, D.C. And I did this deal, and it was my first syndication. I had 5 investors put in $50,000 each. And so I bought this building, and it scared the crap out of me. And then worse, once I got into it, it was a nightmare. I had what's called a professional tenant in there, and it was awful. It was like I immediately regretted my decision to get into apartment buildings. House flipping was much easier and much more exciting. And then what happened is once I finally stabilized and got the tenant out, it got really boring. It was sending me like $1,500 a month and check. But like I said, I didn't feel the adrenaline rush when you're buying, fixing, and selling houses. And one day, what am I doing? That is not passive income. That's not financial freedom. How in the world am I going to sustain buying, fixing, and selling houses? That's not what Kiyosaki talks about. And that's when the light bulb went out. Wait a minute. I should probably do less of this and more of that and use the principles I learned raising money for houses and do this thing. And there wasn't, I don't even know it was called syndication in back in the day. No one really was teaching it. And so I figured things out on my own. And that's when I started pivoting and blogging for myself and the bigger pockets. And people were really interested. So I developed a syndicated deal analyzer, which is probably the most widely used analysis tool on the planet right now. And I developed a course. And today we're the leading, possibly at least a leading authority on teaching other people to get into apartment building syndications, even though they may not have any experience and a bunch of money in the bank. And you can, but don't have to get into real estate, a single family house real estate investing. I'd say about half of our students that come through have done some single and the other ones have not. It's not necessary. It's nice to have, but it's not really necessary. And the cool thing, I've done so many shenanigans with financial freedom. I've done software, restaurants, stocks and options, house flipping. I've studied this. I have not found a single business opportunity that is so powerful and so fast in achieving financial freedom, because most people in our environment do their first deal around the 6-month mark, certainly before the end of the year. And most people quit their job somewhere around 12 to 18 months after they decide to get started. That's how fast. And the other thing that's interesting, and it works for a wide variety of people, old people, round people, square people, right? Introverts, extroverts. And I find that fascinating. Then that's what makes me really excited about real estate as a tool for financial freedom, specifically around apartments.
Very cool. And I'm curious, it sounds like you got into the whole blogging and educating pretty early on in your career. Was that very natural for you to have this, or was that intentional for you as a way to source deals, source money, or all of the above?
Yeah, so it's so funny. Not really. So I had a conversation with God. This was in 2013 as my wheels would come off the restaurant. It was actually after I got in the apartment building. But when it really got bad, it was the restaurant business. And it was really bad, right? So I had to let my operator go. And I had this conversation with the guy and I said, you did this to me. You made me quit my cushy job. And I was like, okay, what should I do? You need to show up in this mess that you created. And I just got the distinct impression I was supposed to share my experiences with others. And most of them were massive failures. Some actually weren't, but they really weren't financial freedom, as I just talked about. And that's why I decided to blog. Okay. That's really what I did. It was just simply something I felt I needed to do. Okay. Now that led to other things. And this is an example where you don't have to have everything figured out. Sometimes you get a strong feeling about something. And let's say it doesn't just happen, last a day or two. It goes on for like weeks and months. You got to pay attention to that. It's the universe telling you, man, you know what? Your best life is right over there. Okay. And you think it's over there, but it's actually over here. And every person has this gets this sense or feeling, whether you're religious or not, doesn't really matter. And I think we all need to start paying attention to that a little bit more. And so that's what I did, but there wasn't a plan behind. In fact, I did study the plan behind it. It was awful, Tim. The plan was, okay, you put out content like for years and years, you grow your list, and then maybe if you're lucky, you can actually sell something and then maybe 10 years from now make a living. Like that's the business plan. And I was like, God, that is an awful business plan. But what I found with myself and others who follow their passions, regardless of how much money it makes, it just leads to one thing to another, and it becomes just magical. You just can't explain it. And so this blogging thing did lead to one thing. When it came out through the syndicated deal analyzer, and through that, people started bringing me deals, and people said, hey, I will do this with you. And so that really allowed me to scale. If you're just doing a onesie, twosie here to there, we had people I've never met before, and they would put their marketing package in the SDA and send it to me. It accelerated the process. Then we created something called a deal desk. Actually, the first 10 deals I did were joint ventures that were people were bringing me through our little ecosystem there. And it was pretty cool. And so that's one thing led to another there. And then that thing leads to another thing. It leads to a larger platform and you become more of an influencer. And this again allows you to attract more capital. And so sometimes it looks like I'm a freaking visionary, and maybe I am, but I can see Tim like 12 months in the future, maybe 3. Okay. Like with the 5-year time frame, I really, I'm too limited by my own reality sometimes. And I think that's the secret for most people who can't see 20 years into the future, like Elon Musk. It's amazing, man. If I had that kind of crystal ball, it'd be awesome. Just look a little bit ahead and just make progress towards that vision, I think. And you do that over long periods of time. It is amazing. And I didn't get started with this, Tim, until I was probably in my mid 30s. Honestly, I just went to get a job, went to college, did all these things. I didn't really wake up until then. Had I started when I was like 18 years old, we all started when we were 18 years old, lights out.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and so your journey of blogging and becoming an authority, having your own platform has apparently worked extremely well for you. Do you teach your students to do the same, it's like a similar path when they get started?
Yeah, we do. And I'm an analytical guy. So we have something called the Dealmaker Blueprint, which kind of shows the progression. I'm sorry, it's a Dealmaker journey. It shows a progression as a syndicator all the way from never doing a deal, doing your first deal, quitting your job, and then also scaling. We're teaching students who have done at least one syndication how to scale. And in that process, we do teach them the online marketing. We call it platform building. So you have to start building your own platform. And it's typically happens when you've done a deal or 2 or 3 and you've raised capital before, typically one-on-one meetings, word of mouth, and you can raise $500,000, even $1 million in this thing, but you can't raise 10. But it's helpful to know who your ideal investor is, who your audience is. So like we just interviewed a gal who has an oil and gas background, professional oil and gas. Guess what? She's raising money from people in the oil and gas industry, right? If you're a medical doctor, you're probably going to have other medical doctors. And so you build your, what they call your hour on typically who you are, right? Because people will resonate with your story. And so you build a platform and your message around that. You start producing content that is going to be relevant to other people that are your ideal investor. And so that's how you build a platform and use your influence to attract people while you're essentially sleeping on autopilot. They come to you. You use some technology and some automations in the back end to make them jump through a few hoops, educate them in the process, and really get them to book a call with you and build a relationship that way. And then, of course, when you have a live raise, you do a webinar. And then when you do all this work, magically, you can raise millions in days. Yeah, you're an overnight success that took several years to build.
Exactly right. Let's talk about your very first raise for syndications. How was it? Was it challenging? What challenges did you go through?
I think everyone's first raise is challenging, and I thought it would be much easier because I had probably raised like $1 million through house flips. I had probably $1 million deployed, and it was really easy. Like 12% interest. I'll give your money back in 6 months, and you're guaranteed against the property. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. And then I was like, oh, guys, I have this cool apartment building. Oh, okay. Tell me about that. The return is 15% IRR, is an 8% cash on cash, and I'll need your money for the next 5 years. And they're like, oh, and the minimum is $50,000. And they're like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. They're all out. Like, I had one person out of the 5, one freaking person that invested with me. And the 4 others were new. That I literally had to go. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought I could take my single family house investing and just chew into the apartment building. And then same thing with brokers. That was super irritating. I would start calling on brokers and they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I said, I'm a house flipper. I flipped 3 dozen houses. Apartment buildings have you done? I was like, none. But look at the houses I've done. And they're like, yeah, why don't you send me your proof of funds and I'll never send you a deal. That's the conversation. I couldn't believe it. I simply couldn't believe it. And so the first capital raise was surprising. And then the other thing that was surprising later on, when we did a deal in Birmingham, maybe it was like the third or fourth deal, maybe something like that. We were raising $750,000 million. We needed to raise $750,000, which now is easy for us. But at the time, this was a major challenge. And I actually set up a lead magnet, and then we did a webinar. We struggled raising that money. And because I didn't follow my own rules, what I know now, the way you build a platform. I missed like the major steps. Like, I guess, okay, I had a lead magnet, which is great. People go and download a special report and then they're on my list. Okay. If 6 months goes by until I have a deal and I start emailing hot and heavy about a deal I'm doing, they've forgotten they downloaded some special report. Who is this Michael guy anyway? Delete. And so no one responded. And I failed to actually engage and build trust with the people. When you have a lead magnet, you got to commit to regular content. You got to put out weekly content. And if you don't do that, people aren't going to invest with you because you have not built that trust. So it's critical when you're raising money online. You have to do all these things. Okay. You need to identify your avatar. Yes, you need to have a nice website, I'm sure, but you really need a lead magnet. So when you get visitors to come, and that lead magnet has to be relevant to the avatar, your ideal investor, right? So it's got to be compelling. It's not add your name here and we'll add you to our newsletter. No, no one wants to be added to a newsletter. They want something that shows them, that solves a problem for them that they want, and they'll give you their email. And then you have to educate them. You have to engage them. And then you do a live webinar. You do all those things and you can start scaling it. And then your problem becomes, how do I promote myself more? What channels do I use? Every channel at once, because there's too many channels. Simply doing a podcast will just crush you for a year, just putting a podcast out. But you decide to do Facebook Lives and webinars, that's very time intensive until you figure it out. And maybe you put someone in charge of it. And then now you can maybe go deep into LinkedIn or social media or do something else. And so over time, you simply grow your platform by opening up new channels.
And then in terms of, you mentioned about the lead magnets and what in between, how do you, what do you teach, or how do you stay in touch with the investors that opt in, nurture that? And then also too, have you found like a length of time before someone start to invest with you on average?
I don't know the length of time. I haven't done that. It does vary. It does vary widely. Some people are like, let's go. In other words, like they lurk on your list for a number of months or even years. So I don't know what the average time is. I have to study that. That would be an interesting. You asked a question about what do you do when someone downloads a lead magnet. The first thing, that was your question, right? What happens?
Yeah. What's your nurturing process look like? Yes.
Yeah. So obviously you need a compelling lead magnet. It's when someone goes to your website, you want them to download that lead magnet, right? So this is why you have to be very clear about who your ideal investor is and what they want and what they would actually download. Once you've done that, though, once they've downloaded it, there's usually typically use a series of email automations to welcome them to your company. But really what you want, Tim, at that point, this is critical, is you want them to book a call with you. This is critical for a variety of reasons. One, you need to get to know your investor, and the investor needs to get to know you. And there's really nothing more than a human contact. That's number one. That's really the really accelerates the trust building, answer their common questions and things of that nature. But then number two, it's also really a requirement to not violate the SEC rules if you're doing a 506B raise, is you can't just put a deal out there unless you're doing a 506C, which very few syndicators do. Most of us tend to do 506Bs. And in there, you have to build a pre-existing substance relationship with your investors. So there's various guidance around that. You have to be able to send them some information. You have to have a website, maybe some emails that you have some interactions with them. There's maybe a questionnaire they have to fill out, right? Each of these things is a checkbox and list of building a substantive relationship. And a call is one of those things. And so if you do those things, we have satisfied ourselves that within a period of 30 days, when you do all these things, we can say, I now have a pre-existing relationship with Tim. And now I can present to you maybe an upcoming deal. Before I can't, but after this is done, I can. So you want to have a call with them. Now, not everybody does a call. They're on your list. They didn't schedule a call. Well, why the heck did you download my special report? I don't know. I thought you want to invest. Some people don't. Okay, so they have this call and some don't. It doesn't really matter. The point is, at that point, you do put them on your list and you then send them regular content. You send them a blog post or a video or a blog post or whatever you're doing, whatever your platform of choice is, you engage them, you send out content that educates them, excites them, and really what it does is builds trust. If you keep showing up every single week, people get to know you, your voice, maybe your face, and you're showing up every single week and you're providing value, that builds an amazing amount of trust. And that's what content is so important. A lot of syndicators don't understand that. They're like, why the hell should I do content? I don't like being an influencer. It takes too much time, and I certainly don't want to invest money in it. And so what they fail to recognize is if they don't commit to content, you're not going to build a trust. You're not going to raise the money. And so the question is, how do you do it? How regular as a content creator? And it's those things. You have to create systems and you have to invest in the content. I probably invest $40,000 a month on nothing but content. And so you have to make it a strategic thing. If you're going to scale a syndication business, you have to invest in content. You have to put time and you have to put money in it. I probably, from a time perspective, I probably spend my most amount of time producing content of some sort.
Yeah, I totally agree. I heard oh gosh, his name just escaped me for now. Yeah, Billy Jean, the marketing guy, and he talks about the 5 components. And he said, yeah, it all starts with content, because content is where you get the attention, and then from there, that's where you convert from that attention into a lead into a sell. And so yeah, it starts with content first. So totally. Now, Michael, if you in terms of the avatar, is there a investor avatar that's your favorite, or that you have the most of in your from your investors?
No, so I'm a little bit different. For most people, like I said, it's typically it's an avatar that is almost you, like you are the avatar. There's something about you and about you feel strongly passionate about what your story is, and you tend to track those people in general. Now, in my case, I don't have a specific avatar per se as a certain type of demographic or occupation or anything like that. My mission is financial freedom with real estate. Okay, that's why I wear this black shirt. And I do that in 2 ways. One is I teach people how to syndicate. These are the active entrepreneurs who want to find deals, put deals together, raise capital. But we can also achieve the same goal by investing passively. Okay, so my avatar is someone who wants to achieve financial freedom. They happen to have money, but they really want the same thing. We really all want the same thing. We want to control our time. That's what we want. Okay, now there's other people who are going to show you how you can become a millionaire. Hey, I'm not one of them. There's others out there that will show you how to buy a plane, okay, and drive Bentley. All right, so I'm going to attract people who want lifestyle. They want to control their time. They want financial freedom. So that really is my platform. So I'm speaking to you about, hey, being able to exit your law practice or your medical practice in the next 5 to 10 years by investing your money and getting tax benefits. Okay, I'm going to track those people, right? And they're from all over. And now in my case, though, my platform is big enough where I can get away with it. For most people, it's not really a good idea to do that. It has to be it has to be a niche of some sort. Let's say we had one of our students, he was a financial advisor, and his parents, his aging parents, basically were in danger of running out of money. That's retirees' biggest fear, is retiring out of money. And many do. And that's why you see them working in grocery stores and working 2 or 3 jobs just because to make ends meet. This person got really discontented about all this stuff. How can their parents not have money in retirement to work for 50 years? How can this be? So his mission became, how do I use passive investments to help those people? Okay, so when he crafts his lead magnet, okay, he's not going to put a leaving at how to get rich in 30 days. Okay, he's going to put out retirees, exclamation, attention retirees, how to never run out of money in retirement. This is what your financial advisor will never tell you. Okay. Now, if I'm a retiree and I see that thing, I might even pay you for that report. I'm certainly gonna give you my free email, my email address. And that's why the avatar is so important. You cannot have a wishy-washy avatar. The more specific it is, the better. The better your messaging is, the more I can craft Facebook ads, right? My messaging is spot on. If you put out anyone who wants to invest passively, you're going to fail miserably. So you got to figure out who is that avatar.
And this question's probably might be different for you, since, like you said, your platform's a lot bigger. So let's look at your students, right? Once they identify their avatar, what have you found to be like the top marketing channels or platforms that you have seen work really well among your students?
So it depends. There is in general a variety of wonderful marketing channels that all work, right? Brandon Turner loves Instagram. I don't really like it. I'm not really good at it, but Brandon Turner somehow raises $20 million on Instagram. Okay, that's fantastic. For me, it's a podcast. A podcast for me is number 1. The Yellow Book. Great. And then the Yellow Book is number 2. So for me, it's a podcast and the book. But for many, it's LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. In fact, the guest I just had previously to this, that's her main channel is LinkedIn. And so there are a number of ways, and you really have to narrow down what you enjoy most. Okay, there's really 3 ways for content. You can write. Okay, if you like to write, blog and email might be the way to go, right? If you like interviewing people, podcasts might be to go. Even YouTube, though the attention span on YouTube is much shorter. It's much more wham bam. Maybe you like video. Most syndicators I've found, most capital raisers don't like any of those. Okay, they don't like the write. They don't like the way they sound. They don't like the sound of their voice, and they don't like the way they look on video. Okay, they're all like, "Yeah, I'm out. I'm already out. I don't like producing content. This is not for me." And so you got to beat them into submission a little bit. And what I found is practice a little bit, putting out really bad content and just staying consistent with putting out really bad content gets them over the hump. And the thing that gets them over the hump is one person that reacts positively to whatever you put out. And we've had this repeatedly with our students. They're like, I said, this video is awful. Put it out immediately. And they're like, oh, it's awful. I'm never putting it out. And then someone reacts, goes, man, that is exactly what I needed to know right now. And they're like, oh my gosh, my crappy video actually made a difference with somebody. And then as a content producer, that's what lights you up and that's what hooks you. No one goes into this, even myself, when I started. I didn't really enjoy blogging every single week because I was actually committed to doing Bigger Pockets on a weekly basis. And most of the time I did. And other times it was due Friday morning at 10 o'clock and I'm sitting there the morning of, like, what am I going to write about? Oh my gosh, this is awful. And it's really like everything in life, it's really consistency. So it doesn't really matter so much as something that you think you can grow to enjoy, but then you got to stick with it. You can't be all over the freaking place. But I think that the best way to get out the word of whatever your platform is, and this is what we teach, is it's easy and it's free, is to get in other people's podcasts. Okay, it's free and it's easy. You can hire a VA to create a target list of 50 podcasts you want to get on, and those things. And even small podcasts maybe have 100 listeners. Okay, they may not have tens of thousands, but they can have 100. Now imagine, what would you need to do to get in front of 100 people in a room? Like, you'd have to kill someone. Okay, that's a staggering amount of people. You just got to pick the right audience, the right podcast. Okay, and then you talk about your lead magnet on there. And if you were talking to a bunch of retirees, maybe there's a financial podcast that maybe caters to some of the older people. Well, shoot, your lead magnet is going to crush it. You're going to get like 100% conversion rate. And that's really how it's a very easy way to start seeing what I'm talking about in action. Because what happens is you put all these things in place, you go to sleep, next morning you wake up and there's a call on your calendar. Who is this Sam Harris on my calendar? I have no idea who Sam Harris is. Oh gosh, it's a potential investor. He came through the sausage factory and he's now on my calendar. And that's when the light bulb goes off. And you're like, oh my God, I got to do more of this stuff. Like, God, these people are coming to me. I don't even know who they are. And then they end up investing with me.
That's awesome. What about funds? Do you have a fund?
We have not done a fund. However, we
Okay.
just raised for a fund actually. And I have wanted a fund for a while, but the fund is not very few syndicators have funds, even some of the larger ones. And I really want a fund, but my partners right now don't want a fund, but I'm going to have a fund. And there are disadvantages and advantages of a fund, right?
Right,
So,
which is where I was leading with that question.
mean,
Yeah.
fund solves some problems and then creates other problems, right? I think so. The problem it solves for me is what we do right now is we do it on a case by case basis. Okay. And that's fine. People really like investing in a particular deal. I can have a webinar. Okay. I can have a lot of scarcity and urgency. We're going to oversubscribe. You better wire your money in. Boom. You got 24 hours. You're out. Great. It's fantastic. People like to see the property. They like to ask questions about the property. And a fund, of course, is blended. I'm like, I don't know what I'm investing in. It could be car washes. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm investing in. And most investors prefer to invest in something tangible that they can drive to, which they, of course, never will, but that's what they like to do. And so there's a lot of advantages. The disadvantages is that if I have leads coming in, like I just talked about, if your platform and you're going around, you get 5 a week, 10 a week, 15 a week. Okay. That's pretty cool. And then you have a conversation and you're like, Tim, I'll let you know when I have a deal. And then 4 months goes by. This guy needs to deploy his money right now. What's he going to do? Wait for you to get a deal? Maybe, but he might just invest somewhere else and he's gone. Okay. Now he's gone. What I would like to do, if I have steady lead flow coming in, I would like to close them right then and there. I'd like to, you know what? This is fantastic. We're hitting it off. You're ready to go. I'll send you the paperwork and you'll send the wire tomorrow. Okay. Now, the downside of that is you feel pressure to deploy the capital that you bring in. But
Right.
there's ways to address that as well. In other words, you don't actually have to take money in. You send the paperwork, you get a legal commitment, and then you do capital calls. right? Of the good kind, the good capital calls. And you say, okay, I have a $40 million fund and we're going to do 4 deals. So now I'm going to do a $10 million capital call and everyone is required to wire in the money or they become in default. And I'm going to send you a poop bag if you don't send in your wire. Okay. And I do a successive capital calls and maybe I have a period of time that I can do that. And if I don't do that, then the commitment goes away. So there's ways to do that. And so there are pros and cons. The other pro is I think you can smooth out the returns a little bit. If you look at any kind of portfolio, you got a few dogs and then 2 home runs in there, and then you got like the middle somewhere. I don't want a home run and I don't want a dog. I really don't want either of them because they don't benefit me whatsoever. Believe it or not, even the home run don't benefit me. What I really want is I want a median middle. Okay. I want to know that when you invest in Nighthawk equity, you're going to get these returns and this cash on cash. I want reliability and predictability. I don't want a home run and I don't want a dog. Therefore, a fund is beneficial if I can have 4 or 5 deals in a fund because for that reason, it'll smooth out the returns a little more. I can also then I can combine, I can share costs between different properties. So let's say one property needs cash and the other one's got excess cash. Right now, I can't take this excess cash I don't need and put it in a cap and one I can't. So irritating. I got $1 million in the bank. I don't really need it. And now I'm sucking wind on this one, right? And with a fund, I can move some capital around. So to me, those are all the benefits. And having said that, only very large and very few syndicators really do funds because you do have to commit to the marketing. It's got to be, you got to generate leads and you got to have sales. Like it's serious business. You're paying a lot of people to really generate leads and then convert those leads into something that generates revenue directly. And so that only very few people are doing that. That's where we're headed.
Gotcha. And then, so with this fund that you recently raised for, have you found it to be more challenging to raise for it or not really?
No, not really. It's amazing. So,
Okay.
but it was for
Gotcha.
someone else. It was a joint venture. Okay. The good news about that is my partners could see how someone else is doing it firsthand. And it's exactly the way I talked about. It's lead flow, calls come in, send the paperwork, wire the money. And there's these sales team that do that. And they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it's one of those things where it's a different level of thinking entirely, right? You're thinking, you have different levels of thinking. You're thinking single family houses. Okay. That's level. And most people can never get out of that world. And there's some of us, man, single family house is insane. I'm doing a turnkey. I do another turnkey. I don't have more money to do turnkeys. And so the next level of thinking is syndications, apartment buildings. Okay. And then, and that level then is what we're in is we're doing one deal at a time. That's super cool. But what if you didn't do one deal at a time? What if you're constantly raising money? And then the problem becomes is how do you deploy the money? And so what we need to do, and what a lot of the big operators do, is they decouple the marketing and the capital raising from the operations. Okay. So what I mean is the following. If I tie operations to capital raising, then I have to find a deal. If I can't find deals, then I can't raise money. If I raise money, what am I going to use it for? I don't have a deal to put it in. Okay. Or let's say I have operational issues. Some operators are having some distress right now and there's fires burning everywhere. Maybe there's a wheel that's just come off. Okay. They're not going to go do more deals. They got a bigger problem. They got to fix what's going on back there. All right. And it's not going to raise capital. So you have the marketing and sales machine going on, and then you have the operational machine. Typically for us, they're linked. And what we're going to start to do, and the big operators they've decoupled them. And the way they've coupled them is they're partnering with multiple operators, sometimes in even multiple asset classes. Okay. So you see some people where they put out different deals. And so just in full disclosure, the fund that we just raised money for was an oil and gas fund. Okay. Another departure from what we've done in the past is not just for different operators, but an entire different asset class, which was an interesting experience to do that as well. And so we wanted to couple the capital raising side from the operations side. We're really good at multifamily operations, so we don't need to partner with a multifamily operator. But why don't we partner with a really good oil and gas operator? Why don't we partner with a really good real estate debt or something like that? A really strong crypto mining operator. I'm just kidding about that last part, but you get my point.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Talking about the markets, I know you got into this multifamily space in 2011, which is at the beginning of this amazing run that we have had in the last 10 plus years. Where are you seeing this market going now?
Always up, Tim, always up, except for when it comes down. But where's it going now? Here's the thing. We have a very unusual environment right now. unusual in the sense that if you have bought any kind of property, really of any kind, single family or commercial, or including multifamily, you're experiencing pain right now. There's just no way about it. The rapid rise in interest rates, if you're not experiencing pain, I don't know what you bought. Maybe you bought a rock or, okay. But so if you bought some real estate, you're experiencing some distress and some challenges right now. On the other hand, there's amazing opportunity to buy, and it's created by this distress. The distress that operators that are in distress are experiencing is an opportunity for another buyer. Now, interestingly, the fundamentals for multifamily never changed. My gosh, the rental demand is just as strong. The housing shortage is just as bad. Okay. Rents have slowed. The only reason they slowed is because they ran up so much last year that they went, oh, I think I need to breathe for a second because I went up by 25%. Maybe I need to stop for a few months. But rent easily 10% year over year, which is far above the normal 2.5% to 3%. Okay, so the fundamentals are exceedingly strong, yet prices are somehow down 15 to 20%, right? And so this is really when Warren Buffett invests. He invests in high quality companies with strong fundamentals that somehow or another is undervalued, okay? And it's typically when there's fear in the market, when there's blood in the streets, people run for the hills and they run out of every hill. They don't keep their money in good companies. They take the money out of everything because, oh my gosh, everything's bad. It's like people who got burned in 2008 and they owned a townhouse and they lost in foreclosure, and their conclusion was, real estate, that's bad. I'm never doing that again. That is, of course, the wrong lesson. Okay, it's not for all real estate, and not all real estate bad, and times change. And so it's an interesting opportunity we have right now to buy things. And for example, the deal we closed on 2 months ago is vastly different than the deal we bought 2 years ago. It's even though they're both multifamily. And this is what I want investors to understand, is those two deals are like night and day. They happen to have multifamily in the name, but they're completely different opportunities, vastly different opportunities. Okay? 2 years ago, while we underwrote a rise in interest rates, no one underwrote a 4 and 3.5% interest rate rise. We maybe underwrote a 1, maybe a 1.5. Pretty good. Wasn't 3.5. Okay? No one could predict or underwrite the cost of a interest rate cap that we bought for $30,000. That same daggone cap would now cost $1 million. No one predicted that. Not even the experts could predict that thing from happening. And so while all the underwriting was supremely conservative, okay, there's certain things you just simply could not predict, and therefore you could not underwrite. Now, this other deal that we bought, showing in is 6.5%, and we underwrote it with an 8% exit. Okay, we bought a staggeringly expensive $2.2 million 4-year interest rate cap. Okay, and so we're buying this, and if you look at where we are right now, interest rates are really high, and the consensus appears to be that it's going to stay that way for some time. Okay, it might go up another quarter point, and then it might stay, and it might go back down. Doesn't really matter. It's high, and it's not going much higher. It's not going another 3.5%. Okay, if that happens, we have much bigger problems than the interest rate and inflation. Okay, so that's probably not going to happen. So you're basically penciling in an interest rate that is unbelievably conservative, right? Interest rate cap is probably the most expensive we'll ever have in history because the volatility of whatever index they use to come up with this crap is so high because the perceived risk is so high that it's really expensive to buy that level of. That thing is going to calm down as interest rates ease and the fear comes out of the market and people thaw out a little bit. We've already seen it come down. That same cap that was $1 million 3 months ago is like $700,000 now. Okay, it's already come down. Okay, so we bought that cap at the highest point ever. So what I'm saying is the underwriting is so extremely conservative that can only get better. It's not unlikely it's going to get even worse than that. So what I'm saying is that deal was bought so differently than that one 2 years ago, and so investors really need to be careful with not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And going, oh, all syndications are bad. Oh, all oil and gas is bad. Oh, all this is bad. You really have to dig deeper and look at what's going on in the market right now. What's going on in the market right now is multifamily are undervalued. They're for sale. They're on sale because of the fear in the market. Okay. And then if that's the case, I can get without doing any work, I can get something that was worth 20% more a year ago. Okay. For 20% less. And then I put a value add component on top of that. Okay. I can really build wealth with that thing. I just have to be careful about how this deal is underwritten. Okay. You have to ask questions. Talk to me about the debt. What's the debt? Do you have an interest rate cap? What are your assumptions? What are your growth rate assumptions? And does that make sense given what you know about the market? And if it does, man, back up the truck, right? Especially if the operator is strong, the team is strong, they're seasoned, they've done a lot of deals, they've seen to have a few black and blue eyes, that we're going to see a lot of opportunity. Like, the challenge is going to be from a capital raising perspective. There's a lot of people on the sidelines right now because they're afraid. Okay. And that's exactly when Warren Buffett starts to invest. And so should you. If you're a sophisticated investor, you need to be discerning, and you need to realize opportunity is when fear is the most prevalent, and the least opportunity is when greed is prevalent.
Right. That's really good. Have you had capital call on any of the deals that you're in right now? And then if so, like what messed up the deal? What messed up the economics of the deal?
I have vowed to never do a capital call, Tim. And however, we did have our first one 3 weeks ago. And let me tell you why. And let me tell you that not all capital calls are created equal. The reason is, in this current environment, you are not rewarded for operating well. For the reason I mentioned, if you have imagine you buy an insurance policy that costs $15,000 a year, $30,000 per year. And then on the third year, you get the renewal for $1 million for the next 12 months. You will fall off your chair with a stroke. Okay. And you're like, okay, maybe I have $1 million laying around, but not for that. I got to fund my construction plan. And so now what do I do? Okay. You got a 2 or 3 year cap. It's expiring. The property is performing well, but it's not to where you needed to be for a refinance. And it could be not enough time has gone by for you to execute the plan. That's number one. Okay. Number two, though, is the lending environment sucks right now. The loan to values are much lower than were a year ago or a year ago. So if you're trying to refinance, you get a normal refinance from bridge to AC debt. Chances are very low that you're going to be able to repay your previous loan, even if you're performing well. Now, if you're crushing it, you might get by the skin of your teeth. Okay, because the lending criteria are so stringent now, and the loan to values have gone down. You're not getting 80% or 75%. You're getting like 65%. Okay, and so you can't actually just refinance. So you have several options. You can stay in your bridge loan. Like, a bridge loan is a 5-year loan. That's fantastic. Okay, we did that. I don't have to sell or refinance. I got a bridge loan, but what I have to do is I have to renew that stupid cap, because the lender requires the cap, and if not, you're in default, and they'll just take the building away from you. So you have to renew that stupid cap, right? So if I can't refinance, and I don't want to sell, or I can't sell because the prices are down, then my only option is to extend, not the loan, but the cap. And that's the irritating thing about it. So you need capital for that thing, and that's what we did. We had an 85% participation rate, and 10% of the investors decided not to do it, and 5% we couldn't get a hold of it. I don't know where they are. Okay. 85% then, and we sold it because the property is operating well, okay? And we have a plan. It's operating to pro forma. We have a plan. We're going to extend this thing. We're probably going to do a HUD loan, and that'll take 6 months to do, or maybe we'll sell, or maybe if the market improves, we have options. If the market stays as of right now, we can get out with a HUD loan. Okay. HUD loans are a nightmare. We're going to do it just to get out of the situation we're in. All right, fantastic. But here's what happens. I'm sure you guys have heard the foreclosure in Houston, 3,200 units. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? The sky is falling. These knuckleheads didn't have an interest rate cap at all. Okay. So and this is what happens with operators who either didn't buy right or are not good operators. So imagine you get into a deal, it's low cash flow, you're doing a value add, and you can't get it right. And you can never really get the cash flow to where it needs to be. And it's kind of low cash flow. You get a 2% cash on cash return. Investors aren't really that happy. And now let's say you do have a rate cap, a 2% floating rate cap. And now it goes up to 1%, 2%. And what's that do to your cash flow? It's gone. And you're losing money every single month. You're losing money, and you're probably cutting into your construction budget. At one point, you will run out of money. Now imagine you're running out of money, and you do a capital call with your investors. Hey, guys, we're running out of money, and we need to now extend this rate cap, and we need $2 million. What's they're going to say? They're like, no, I think I'll take the write-off. I am not putting good money after bad, okay? And therefore, they're not funding the capital call. A lot of operators will not be able to fund the capital call, okay? And this is what creates the opportunity. This is what I'm saying. We are now finally exposing the good operators from the bad operators. And this is great. Fantastic. If you're a good operator. If you're a bad operator, you're gonna experience some pain. But what's going to happen is you're going to experience a lot of opportunity. What's already happening is a lot of operators are calling other operators to buy them out, taking their position. They're going to walk away and turn it over. There's a lot of back stuff going on. I don't think you'll see a lot of foreclosure, maybe a little bit. I don't know how these guys screwed this up so badly. There's also other options. There's pref works, right? And they pretend they try to help you, but really at the end of the day, they're taking a deal. So it's almost like the GP stepping into your shoes, taking out the GPs, and then probably taking out half the LPs. So at least it's not a complete loss of capital, but it might be a good 25 to 50% loss of capital, right? But that's why a lot of these pref equity funds are coming into play to rescue some of these operators. So you're going to see a lot of that. So if you're in the syndication business and you're looking for opportunity, you're going to get it. If you're a passive investor, you're going to get a lot of opportunity right now. And so I think it's a mistake to be on the sideline. I think it's much better to get involved now. And I think the gains that we're going to make collectively in this new opportunity market will far outweigh any losses we might have made over the last year or two.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely lots of opportunities happening. Let's switch gear a little bit. Tools. I know with your tech background, what are some of your favorite tools? And then what are you doing with AI stuff? Love to hear that.
AI. Okay. Wow. Geez. Okay. Yeah, we are technology. I love technology. We try to use technology wherever we can, wherever we possibly can. And so for investors, we have an investor portal. Once you get above 25, 50 investors, it's critical to not only have a portal, but a CRM. Especially a CRM is when you're bringing in new investors and you're nurturing conversations with them, because those new investors don't go into your investor portal. Only existing investors go in there, and you use it to keep in touch with them, send them K1s and just blah, blah, blah. But you need a CRM to track your conversations you've had, right? So it's in CRM as a customer relationship management system. There's a variety out there. We use ActiveCampaign, and it also manages your email flow, as well as all the automations in the back end we talked about. When someone downloads a lead magnet, automatic emails go out. You can use integrations like Zapier that integrates ActiveCampaign and websites with, for example, Calendly. So if you want to have someone book a call, you can integrate Calendly, and when someone books a call, it notifies ActiveCampaign that a call was booked, and then now you can stop chasing them. So a lot of technology like that we use everywhere that we can. AI, yeah, that's an interesting thing. I don't know. I'm open to some ideas from you, Tim, on that. We're all trying to collectively figuring out how we use AI. We dabble in it. I think we've used AI to write stuff, actually blog posts, but it's still not good enough. The output is still really not good enough. But what it can do is it actually, because it draws in different kind of research into it, you can hand that to a writer and have that writer turn to something that's actually reads like a human. So it actually does accelerate it. We experiment with video AI, which is really fun. So I look like a cartoon character, which like I am real life, and they can make me talk, say anything I want. And there, it looks awful, by the way, awful. But my marketing team really likes it, and apparently on social media like it as well. There's stuff like that. In general, though, on the marketing, I think that's all cool. But on the property side, man, things move so slowly over there. Property managers, they don't really adopt technology. Tenants don't really adopt. It's like a slow moving thing on the property side. But I don't know what you're seeing with AI, it's a great question.
Yeah, I've been playing around with ChatGPT a lot for all kinds of stuff. It really is. It really is. And yeah, I use it everything from event planning to checklist to copywriting, a lot of different things. But one of the tools that I started playing with called Descript. Have you heard of that? So Descript is a video tool, and it allows you it does two things. Number one, you can train it with your voice. So you I submit an hour-long video of like me reading these words, and you can do it. You can submit like your podcast as well, or anything that just have your voice only, and it will train to your voice. And then from there, that's one thing it does. The second thing it does is that it allows you to edit your video based on, you do the text editing and it changes it on the video. So one of the things, one of the things I'm playing with right now. So let's say we have 60 something people on the call right here. And so if I say, if I do one video, it says, hey, Name, thanks for being on our call today. It was great seeing you. I can then go in and change out the word name with their name, each person's name. And now I can have a bunch of greeting that's only recorded once. So it does a lot of things like that. Yeah.
One of those video chats, that's amazing. It's almost you choose a template, you drop in a raw file, and it takes out the ums and the whatever, and it
Yep.
does it recognizes what you're saying, overlays text. It does what it takes a video editor like an hour to do a 5-minute clip at least, and then
Yeah.
we're using that, and it reduces our cost in video editing. But then we give the final result to an actual video editor, and they go adjust it. But it saves a lot of time. So I think AI in general, I don't think it'll replace humans. However, I think it'll improve our productivity.
100%, 100%. Yeah, for sure. I have all my staff use various tools with that. So awesome. All right. Now, Michael, let's talk about your event coming up. I'm actually going to be on the platforms panel. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you. So yeah, share with everybody about the event. Who is it for? What do you cover at the event? And where can people go and sign up?
Gosh, Dealmaker Live is next week, June 1 to 3 in Dallas. You can maybe still get tickets at dealmakerliveevent.com. And it's our annual conference, right? And it's really, we bring together passive investors and active investors. And it's really a great way for the two to connect to each other. It's also a great way for you to partner. So if you're an active investor, you're typically one of two people. You gravitate towards a capital raising, but you need access to deals, or you're a deal finder, but you need capital. And those provide magical joint ventures. We've had just dozens of people just meet at Dealmaker Live to that end as well. And we're really talking, like I talked earlier, on the Dealmaker journey as a syndicator. We're really talking to people who have never done a deal before, and then we talk to people who have and who want to scale to 1,000 units. So we have a good amount of that really are talking to both. Even if you've never done a deal before, it's useful to know what happens after the first deal. I mean, in my mind, if you commit to the first deal is a foregone conclusion, right? So you might as well know what comes after the first deal. So that's what we're going to do is at steelmakerliveevent.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And my assistant will post in the link and the promo code here for you guys. And so definitely highly recommend you guys to come, and I'll be there as well. So looking forward to seeing you. So with that, Michael, we'll be wrapping up this part of the call, and then we'll open up for Q&A in just a little bit here. But thank you so much for your generous time and being with us today. Beyond the events, for those of you that want to reach out to you, connect with you, partner with you, invest with you, learn from you, where else would you like to send them?
Oh, yeah, so there's two places, depends on who you are and what you're looking for. If you are an active investor or you want to become an active investor, you want to learn how to syndicate, then I would just say, just look at us. And it's just very simple. It's themichaelblank.com/call. It's a 20-minute call. We call it real estate strategy sessions, and allows you to ask some questions, and then we'll point you in the right direction. If we have a resource that will help you, we'll do so. It's something we've been doing for a little while. That's themichaelblank.com/call. If you're a passive investor and you're interested in multifamily syndications, I'm on the Nighthawk Equity side, so it's nighthawkequity.com. And again, you can schedule a call with us there and have a conversation with us. So those are probably the two things. Oh, one thing we did is launch last week, Tim. If you're an active investor, you should still book a call. But there's a really cool resource that we call Apartments 101. So if you're not sure about apartments, it's just a free video series, and that's at apartments101.co. So that's a training course. Introduces you into, it's like a short version of my yellow book. So those are maybe some resources for y'all.
That's awesome. Love it. I love how you put out tons of resources out there, tons of content, tons of education.